Good evening and welcome to In Conversation with Thabang podcast. And today, like we promised, we invited Tumelo. Tumelo wabona kiwa Tumelo attorneys, and we're going to learn more about National Youth Development Agency Act. We're also going to learn more about Skills Development Act. We're talking about skills shortage in South Africa, but who is responsible to ensure that we really get to the bottom of this or deal with the root causes of this? Tumelo is here to give us guidelines on what the acts are saying. Maybe somebody's thinking that, melao na iteng e re thusang re le maAfrika Borwa re fumane skills tse kapa re thuse jwalo ka batho ba batjha. Tumelo is here to come and outline that. But before we can get into that, Tumelo, good evening and welcome to our podcast.
Good evening, Dade Kezh𝐶, once again.
Yes.
That you have invited me, and yes. Good evening to everyone watching.
Yes.
From wherever they could be.
Yes. Tumelo, before we get into the issues around the National Youth Development Act, last week or 2 weeks back, we were celebrating Children's Week. I wanted us to look into the Child Justice Act 75 of 2008 and then tell us what happens to a child who has committed crime.
This particular act that day was particularly designed and created to deal with children that are found to be in conflict with the law,
yes,
or that have been accused of committing offenses. Mm-hmm. So in other words, you find that they are perhaps under the age of 12,
yes,
under the age of 14, mm-hmm, or under the age of 18.
Okay.
So this act was created so that they can then be dealt with appropriately in terms of their age,
yes,
so that they can be also rehabilitated back, mm-hmm, into society,
yes,
and discouraged from behaving in the manners that they have.
Yes.
So that's why we have that law, so that it can tell us how wana committed a crime or are accused, mm-hmm, of being in conflict of the law.
Yes. Really, from that, one can ask if a child can have a criminal record. Like, if I commit crime, I know there will be a criminal record. But with a child, what happens?
That's why we have this law, so
yes,
that it can also take into consideration what were the circumstances that, mm-hmm, led to the child finding themselves in conflict with the law, yes, or having committed such offenses. Mm-hmm. So yes, a child can have a criminal record as well, mm-hmm, depending on the age and the seriousness of the crime. Mm-hmm. For example, if a child is under the age of 12,
yes,
in terms of this act, he or she does not have criminal capacity. Yes. They cannot be incarcerated or imprisoned. Mm-hmm. So what happens if a child is under the age of 12, but now they've committed an offense? What needs to happen is that the parents have to be informed about, yes, it, or the guardian of the minor child, mm-hmm, and then that's when the social workers get involved. Mm-hmm. The Children's Act clearly stipulates that the Child Justice Act as well, that such a child is incapacitated in terms of being a criminal. Mm. So what needs to happen is that social workers must be involved to assist the child, mm-hmm, to see what led to the child behaving this way, and, mm-hmm, how do we then give counseling and therapy and support to the child as well as the parents to ensure that ngwana ha ahola ile a criminal.
Yes.
So between the age of 12 and 14.
Yes.
It's slightly different. Yes, they are still criminally incapacitated, yes, so they at that age. But if the state can prove that the child was in fact capacitated, yes, the child understood what they are doing, mm-hmm, when they committed an offense, mm-hmm, then if the state proves that, then there can be some sort of slightly different treatment, mm-hmm, from the one who's under 12.
Yes.
But even in those circumstances, even a child over the age of 14, mm-hmm, they are still a child, so, mm-hmm, they cannot be imprisoned like adults. There has to be a youth care center where the child can be taken. Mm-hmm. There has to be diversion in terms of how do we then rehabilitate the child. Yes. We must now find a way, how do we bring back the child into society so that instead of just putting them in prison. But if in worst case scenarios where the child is over 14 and it's a serious crime, then the act requires that imprisonment should be the last resort. It's crime is a very serious one, it's a serious offense, and things like that, that they need to be incarcerated. But they cannot be imprisoned with adults. It has to be an environment which will then be conducive for the rehabilitation of a child at that age.
Yes. I just want to check, I'm just thinking, or this child has committed a serious crime. Why it's allowed okay, when it's a crime, 14 years, it's serious. Then only 21 you know, you committed that, now it's time for you to come.
It doesn't quite happen like that, although the child will have a record, and this record will have impact in the long term, because when the child is now an adult, that you have committed such an offense when you were a child, and now if there is a repeat, it can be looked back to say, in your past, in history, you also committed such a crime, and that could be taken into consideration when a sentencing, for example, has to be made, if the child commits a crime once they are an adult. So also it becomes difficult for the child as well, in terms of access to necessary essential services like housing. It becomes difficult when they have a background and a history of having been a criminal. The record will be there, but it's not to say when you're an adult you'll go back and say you committed a crime when you were younger, so now we are punishing you as an adult. It doesn't work like that, unless of course as an adult they commit a crime again. But it will have long-term effect. I mean, even psychologically, even as the stigma that the child will grow with, a history of having committed a serious offense like that.
Yes. Ma'am, I want to check the issue record, a criminal record, 9 time frame, because I happened to meet somebody who said, I once committed a crime many years ago. I applied for a job and this thing came back. Does it have a time frame, or is there a process that one has to do to make sure that you remove that criminal record? Because I'm saying this, in our townships lately, you see Batwabacha, they are involved in gangsterism, they are involved in crime, so as the young people.
Yes.
So where's the criminal record?
It doesn't necessarily expire, so to speak, but generally it is known that it can be valid for 30 years. Then after 30 years, it can lapse. But it can happen even before that period, that the criminal record be removed. There is a process where it can be expunged, depending on what are the circumstances of the particular case, the merits in the case, whether there can be proven that rehabilitation took place or the person has served their sentence, punishment has been completed, and then there are reasons compelling that a person can be pardoned, that the record be removed. So there are ways that you can apply for the record to be removed, but of course you have to show that in fact you qualify to have such a record removed.
In a Child Justice Act, I want to check with you, maybe what are the conversations that we need to have with our children at home? What are the conversations that we need to have with the society? Because it starts at home and then it goes to the society and the child commits crime. Because I don't know, I feel like looking and watching television every day, seeing these gangsterism things, you feel like it's like we're not doing enough.
That's correct, Dade, especially because this particular act, the Child Justice Act, was incorporated, taken into consideration that sometimes the reason is that a child has committed an offense because of the environment that they come from. When you deal with a child who is under these circumstances, you take into consideration that led to this type of behavioral conduct. So it's very important that we take note of the fact that a child doesn't, it's not likely that a child will just commit such offenses out of nowhere.
Yes.
It's important as a community, as the parents, as the guardians, that we are involved in the upbringing of the children and making sure that we are in control of what is it that we expose our children to, how we guide them, and how we raise them. Because lately, it's as if bana ba rona ba hodiswa ke technology.
Exactly.
Bana ba ikhulela,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then we are shocked when children commit serious offenses at such young ages.
Yes.
But if you look at the high rate of crime in our country, it is concerning. And of course, the children are aware, they see what is happening. Sometimes the children are victims. So the environment and the community definitely has a bearing and an impact and contribution to the children ending up in trouble with the law.
Tumelo is simply saying you need to know your child. You know, this technology thing, you get on TikTok, you see nasty things happening there, you know. So as a parent, we need to have time for our children. Re bue le bona, re shebelle na TV. How ngwana a dula a shebelletse di horror movie. What are you thinking as a parent? What are you saying? Because they do have influence.
It's very true.
Ke batla re bue ka purpose of your National Youth Development Agency Act.
Well, we're still in the youth month.
We're still in the youth month.
Yes. You know, in our country in particular, the youth is taken quite seriously because we know our history.
Yes.
You know, where the youth took a stand and they could actually change the status quo, you know, as young as they were.
Yes.
And we don't take for granted the impact and the contributions that the youth can have into the economy and in the society.
Yes.
So the whole point of this particular act is to make sure that the youth is incorporated, is involved, the youth is participating in the economy, in the development of the economy, in the development of our society. So that is the whole point. And also to hear the views of the youth, to make use of the creativeness of the youth, to harness their participation, to develop them and to monitor the development of the youth as well. So that is what this act is all about.
Yes. Some young people, we hear you talking about that. But now who is responsible to make sure that this is implemented? Because it's like we've done so many acts and this and that, and then the next thing re di shelvile, but ke mang a tlamehileng go ensure gore this act happens?
All right. So the act itself, you know, as legislation stipulates the regulation of the agency.
Okay.
So of the National Youth Development Agency, how it should work, you know, and it also accounts as well, because there is a department for women and youth and people with disabilities, and this is where the agency accounts to. And this department is also monitoring to make sure that, you know, the regulations are adhered to, and then the purpose and the activities of the agency are aligned with the purpose of why the agency was created. So there is definitely monitoring and accountability, which goes all the way up to Parliament as well, where there's a minister who will then receive reports from the agency in terms of their activities and whether in fact there is an impact on the youth and there's development and incorporation of the youth.
Yes. Basha, we need to check, or do they fully understand their responsibility in terms of addressing that dissatisfaction they have, rather than vandalizing? Because what happens now in a township, when youth get crazy, they just go and vandalize. What is it that we need to do, or what steps do you think as a legal practitioner we need to do to say to young people, come, let's sit around the table, let's unpack this law that empowers you? Because everything that we do, it's all about anger, it's all about reacting. So what is it that we need to do that you think will help young people to have a better understanding?
You know, when we deal with young people, we need to understand that we are dealing with people that are highly creative, highly energetic, somewhat impatient. You know, they want things to happen and happen now. You know, that is why you'll find that they're involved particularly with technology, because things are happening now and they get to know globally what is happening and they can implement it wherever they are. So we need to understand the energy of the youth and understand the nature of the young people as well, so that we are able to meet their needs. Otherwise there is frustration on their side, and then when it boils up, you know that's when things go wrong. So it's very important that we bring awareness to the youth, but it should be in a way. We cannot sit here legislation and then be quoting sections and then they are bored. You know, we need to find more creative ways to engage them so that they can understand what is this, what legislation says about them, what is available for them, and also involve them in terms of developing that legislation. The laws that we have are constantly developing based on the needs of the society. So based on the needs of the youth, we must develop the legislation that we have. It can't stay stagnant. And for us to develop it to be relevant to the youth, we need to involve the youth. So we need to bring awareness in a way that the youth can understand. Because a lot of the times, they don't really know the laws that are available for them. They don't really know exactly what is the purpose of this agency, or is it available for all the youth or only particular youth in certain areas. So if we bring awareness, it will assist a lot, and then we engage them in a level that they can understand, but we also bring them to participate in terms of developing the act so that it meets their needs.
Yes, I fully agree with that. Let's involve them, let's give them audience, let's listen to what they say, because we had a young people in our previous episode. He did complain about that people are taking decisions on our behalf. They don't involve us. We don't know what is happening. So let's take a quick break and then we'll come back shortly to continue talking to Tumelo. We are empowering young people. We are trying to say, instead of you taking stones or vandalizing your infrastructure, rather understand these laws and let's follow the processes to make sure that we protect the very same infrastructure that we are vandalizing. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back, and we're still having Tumelo, a legal practitioner. Rababisa di legal eagle. Ke batho ba re buellang ha re le ka haro mathata. Ke bona batho ba re ba tsosang ka wanu se ngoremme ba ntshwegetse le mona ne ke bojileng. I wanted us to come to just tell us briefly about the Skills Development Act, because one of the challenge that is in our country, I was reading the report, Home Affairs, that speaks on skills. And then we always hear people say, hey, but what about that skills? Hey, but what about, and we have people coming from other countries, Batla South Africa, and they start xenophobic thing. These people are coming here, they are taking our jobs.
Right.
So on that one, I just wanted you to briefly tell us about what is the Skills Development Act?
Okay, the Skills Development Act is an act that was created for purposes of developing the skills in the country. So it's not necessarily the skills of young people only, but skills of everyone. You remember that we are one of the countries that struggle with a very high unemployment rate and very high illiteracy rate as well. So this act aims to enhance the skills of the people in our country, as well as develop them so that they are able to also participate in the economy of the country, not necessarily through formal education only or formal qualifications from universities, but other means that the people can be empowered so that they can be able to participate in the economy, but also sustain themselves financially as well. So in other words, this is aimed to identify what are areas and skills that can be developed, and how do we then make sure that there are relevant resources to empower people with various skills, so that they are also included in participating into the economy of our country.
Yes. I want you to talk to young people as we're wrapping up. I want you to talk to a boy child, because we recently saw the Olerato Beta.
Yes,
that has, caused so much pain.
So unfortunate.
So unfortunate. I want you to talk to youth, boys, I want you to talk to a girl child. I want you to talk to a parent, because this thing is getting worse. I mean, in 2 weeks' time, Soweto, 8 women were killed by, their intimate partners. What can you say?
It's so concerning. I am a parent as well.
Yes.
I have both a daughter and a son.
Yes.
And, teenagers.
Yeah.
So it is concerning to be raising children as a parent in a society that has such high crime rate, especially domestic violence, And it's become a genocide, this whole GBV thing.
Yes.
So it is concerning as a parent. And I take responsibility as a parent to make sure that from home, I am aware of what is happening with my children, who they are involved with, what kind of activities they're involved in. And I have a good relationship with my children that they can be able to trust me enough to be open to me, because, it's always best if our children can be able to engage us. As much as we might appear to be outdated, born before technology and all those other things, we are still having more experience and more wisdom because of the years that we have, and the knowledge that we have, which they don't necessarily have. So it's important that we balance the relationships that we have with our children. It must be a relationship of trust and openness, so that our children are free to tell us what is happening, and we are able to guide and monitor them as well, and protect them as well. So that's one of the important things for me, to ensure that I have a good, open relationship with my children, of trust, knowing that they can come to me and talk to me about anything, and I can be able to guide them and come to their level. The other thing is, as the girls, for girls, young ladies, it's very important that we understand that as much as they are youthful, they're having a lot of energy, they have interest, they want to be free, they're independent, they have all these other opportunities. We need to be realistic about the challenges of our society, and we have to be more responsible, in terms of the actions that we take, that we are protecting ourselves, that we are communicating with other people. It is true that it is not okay that you can't be free and express yourself freely and engage freely with whoever you want to engage with. It's not right. But we need to be realistic about the challenges that we have in our society, and how we need to take action in protecting ourselves and avoiding certain, environments and certain activities that might endanger our lives. And it's important that we open up and we communicate. I believe that we all have that sixth sense that guides us. You can feel if this is not right, and communicate and avoid, if you can help it, to expose yourself to potential dangers. So it's very important that as a girl, you are aware of your environment, who you engage with, and you communicate with people that you trust about your activities, and you make sure that you protect yourself as much as you can. Avoid things that are absolutely not necessary if you can help it. And then for our sons, it's very difficult for them as well, because I find that a lot of our sons are also growing up in environments where they don't have guidance from the fathers. There are so many children that are growing in single parent homes, where you find that predominantly it will be the mothers that are raising the boys. And so it's difficult for them as well, because they don't always have proper guidance, and it's not always clear what they need to do with the energy that they have, as well. So it's important that we guide, and we, as a society, as parents, we come up with, activities and resources where we can involve our sons, so that they can be able to deal with the rages and the frustrations that they have, and then we can develop them and guide them correctly into the society as adults. One of the challenges is that there's this huge emancipation of women, which is impacting even on the young boys as well, because now girls are getting all these opportunities, and it's as if the boys are falling behind. So it's very important that we also develop them, and then we encourage manhood from a young age, so that they can understand they also still have a role in society, and what is that role. They also need to understand their strengths strength, their inherent leadership that they have and authority that they have as men naturally. They need to understand what that is about and what they need to do with that so that they can actually have a positive impact in the family and in society. So it's all about getting involved and having relationships with each other of openness, of trust, making sure that the opportunities are there and resources are there where we can engage with other people as well. Even the parents that are single moms, for example, raising boys, you can still expose your children to other men so that they can get some sort of experience and guidance. There are uncles, there are grandfathers. You don't have to beat yourself up, you know, just because you're a single mother. But then malume, but then who can also still somehow contribute to the development of the boy child as well. So everyone must be involved and no one should be left behind. If we are going to improve our society, unfortunately it's not going to depend only on the government or a particular political party or leadership. It requires the entire society, because at the moment everyone is affected, even the children. So we need to make sure that we are also moving with the times in terms of understanding that we are no longer in a society where we can just speak down on the youth and on the children. We need to involve them, we need to hear them, and we need to make them part of solving the problems that we have.
Yes. Ma'am Happy, I want to close with this. This thing you're co-parenting, because I think we need to deal with serious issues. Ntate o kwana, mme o kwana le ngwana, ba lwana ka ngwana. Ngwana o hola na le enga, ngwana o hola ha ke da le ngwana ke bua mme hampe, ha na le mme bua ntate hampe. Actually, in short, it's a job, because I think one of the root causes tsa enga ya bana and frustration comes from that.
That's
that
correct.
Ntate o ke ya di o khanna koloi tse tuiri o etsang. How would you advise in that, or co-parenting re etsa jwang hore e be hantle e ska affecta ngwana, because that's where again problems di hlahang ko teng.
Ndede, you are so right about that. You know, it is really unfortunate that if the relationship between the parents breaks down or the marriage breaks down, the children have to now also be the victims. They have absolutely nothing to do with it. If we are no longer together, you know, as the parents, we still have responsibility to parent and raise our children. And it starts there as well, that we need to stop punishing each other with the children, because at the end of the day, we are actually impacting worse on the children, and it's detrimental to the children. So co-parenting is very important, and there are institutions that can even guide and support effective co-parenting. We have the family advocate, for example, which can assist with family planning, you know, and co-parenting plans, parenting plans that can assist both parents, meet them where they are, where the need is, and guide them into creating a parenting plan which is effective for their circumstances and, of course, in the best interest of the child. So we need to understand that the child still needs their father, still needs their mother. Okay? So we can't, we cannot run away from that fact. I can be the best mother I can be, and I believe I am, but I can never be the best father. It doesn't matter what I do, I remain the mother. So we need to understand that the child still needs the father as well. And the father must now also do his part in terms of participating in the child's life. It's not just about money and paying maintenance. If we are going to,
23,
you know, it's not just about that. We need to make sure, you know, it's really sad that some people think if I've paid money, it's sufficient. Some people think if he can just pay the money, it's fine. But that's not where it ends in terms of the needs of the child. The child still needs to have that guidance and that relationship with both parents. So it's very important that co-parenting, we take it seriously as much as we can. But the other thing that is important as well, that hasn't really been explored a lot, it's the issue of step parenting as well. You know, if you are also coming into a relationship with someone who has children from previous relationships, equally you have a role now of parenting this child as well. So we need to understand that if you're going to be involved with a woman or a man who has a child, you need to make peace and be comfortable with the fact that you are going to have to participate in terms of parenting that child as well.
Yes.
Somehow it's still a form of co-parenting as well. So a lot of the times, we will feel like it's not my child. I don't have to be bothered. But if we are going to enhance and develop that particular child, it is such a bonus, in fact, the way I see it. If a child has a biological parent, but they are no longer together, but here's a step-parent also coming into the role, it's a matter of having two moms, having two dads. If we can look at it in that way, it will be for the benefit of the child, because in fact, they will have better than the child that only has one mom and one dad. Because in this instance, there's an extra parent who's involved as well. If we can just make this co-parenting work effectively, change our attitudes about it, because at the end of the day, the children really just need to feel that love, that care. And then they are fine. I've noticed now, we are the ones as the adults who struggle with the issue of co-parenting and step-parenting and that sort of thing. But the children are not. They are so used to it because there are lots of children that are raised in, that are growing up in environments where their biological parents are no longer together. There are so many. They meet at school and they have friends who have the same kind of conditions, So the problem is not them. The problem is us how we introduce this to the children. So if we can change our attitudes as the adults, we'll see that the children are fine with it. They will adapt to the environment as long as there is genuine care, and then that will contribute to making sure that those frustrations that you spoke about that the children have when the parents are no longer together, they will be eliminated.
We must stop saying, you are creating a lot of things, because what is important is love, not money. I remember I was reading one article on social media. This gentleman was complaining, he's the stepfather, that Father's Day. So really stepfather, Papa Pig or Beba Pig. There's this cartoon Beba Pig, and this guy was so frustrated. Papa Pig or Beba Pig. It starts with communication. It starts with conversations. Once and give children love, this country will be much better, because we are raising angry children. So let's try and have those conversations. Tumelo from Tumelo Attorneys, thank you very much. We always learn. And this is what I like about legal practitioners. They always have answers for everything. Everything. Thank you very much. In conversation with Thabang, until we meet again next time, good evening.